Regarding the often repeated question that it would be impossible to establish the effectiveness of a targeted solar return because we will never know what would have happened if the person had not moved. Here is an example that seems to me to be quite illuminating to the contrary. The excerpt is taken from my book New Astrology Dictionary, published by Armenia under the heading Solar Return. Happy reading, everyone. Ciro Discepolo, Solar Return. This is a topic that inflames our hearts. So satisfying has been our experience in the field. From the first year of our astrology studies in 1970, we sensed a spiritual connection with this system, a connection that developed not in a fideistic sense, but based on practical experience. And today we would be unable to interpret a person's astral situation if we did not have 3 charts of that person before us: their birth chart, the current solar return, and the upcoming one. Without these 3 charts, the situation would appear blind. Knowing the functioning and meaning of a solar return means, in our opinion, being able to penetrate the secrets of a person's year, being able to read from them the main and certain events that will concern them. Our first reference in this regard was Alexander Volguine, whose seminal text we requested and obtained from the publisher Armenia was translated into Italian. But don't get confused. Volguine calculated a solar return correctly, but he never practiced or attempted to practice active astrology by moving people, and this was also due to his esoteric/religious beliefs, which would have prevented him from having such a vision. Subsequently, we distanced ourselves somewhat from his approach, for the many reasons described in our practical treatise on solar returns, Blue Diamond Publishers. We believe that a solar return should be read in a few very clear points, without attempting to burden its analysis with tortuous games of correspondences and analogical references. We believe that the points to consider first are: 1. Where does the solar return ascend and fall in relation to the houses of the root chart? 2. Where does the solar return sun fall in relation to the houses of the solar return chart? 3. Where does the solar return stellium fall in relation to the houses of the celestial chart? Revolution. Then, but only then, you should look at the stars in the houses of the solar return, and a little, but only a little, at everything else. We believe that if you don't follow this rule, you can make serious mistakes. The solar return is based on the principle of cycles. Just as in nature, for example, there are circadian rhythms lasting approximately 1 day, during which cockroaches sleep during the day and are active at night, and there are also almost monthly cycles of menstruation in women. So too, every year, when the sun passes exactly over its radical position in a person's sky, a new year begins for them, with special characteristics that are those indicated by the horoscope drawn for that time and place. According to the opinion of some of our colleagues, the solar return should be drawn for the place of birth, and not for the place where one is at the time of one's birthday. But this is absurd, both theoretically and demonstrably. On this subject, please read our aforementioned treatise. Here we would like to offer just one example to demonstrate the absurdity of the thesis of these colleagues. Let's refer to the horoscope of Mata Hari, the notorious Dutch spy executed during the First World War by the French government. We already proposed this example many years ago, asking our colleagues for comments, but we received no comments, so we're reposting it. Below, we report the birth chart of this beautiful spy dancer prostitute, born in Leeuwarden, Holland, on August 7th, 1876, at 1 p.m. We'll focus on just one episode of her life, which, in your own reconstruction, is crystal clear. Astrologers who maintain that the solar return should be drawn based on the place of birth and not the place of residence at the time will have a lot to shout about to convince those who disagree. Let's see. Mata Hari, before becoming a prostitute and spy, as well as an extraordinary dancer, was married to an officer, Major Mac Leod, who took her with him to Indonesia, specifically to Medan. Here, on June 27th, 1899, fate struck her in a terrible way. A native maid poisoned her 2 sons, and one, Norman, died after excruciating suffering. We therefore have all the ideal conditions for a proper comparison. Mata Hari's birth date is certain, and her entire horoscope confirms it. The event we are dealing with is dated precisely, and the locations of Leeuwarden and Medan are far apart, and travel would not have been possible without requiring many months of travel. So what do we see in the 1898/1899 solar return, drawn for her birthplace, Leeuwarden? Nothing, practically nothing, to suggest tragedy, starting with an ascendant in the natal 4th house, a million miles away from the key events we are examining. Then there is an empty and insignificant 5th house. Let's now see what the 1898/1899 solar return, drawn for Medan, where the family was at the time of the murder, tells us. And in which house do you think we'll find the solar return ascendant? In the radical 8th, precisely. And if that weren't enough, we see Uranus in the 5th, and the 2 rulers of the 5th house, Mars and Pluto, conjunct in the 12th. If anyone tells you they still have doubts, they're lying.